but when it comes to health, the truth will set you free. How many times have you heard something that is different than what you believe and it's dismissed? Well, what if by dismissing that, you are keeping yourself from the health that you've been looking for or that you've been longing for? Well, today you're in luck because we have Dr. Carlos Garcia, MD, classically trained. Who knew that he would become an advocate for us when it comes to integrative, holistic treatments for your body, including cancer? Hello, my name is Lillian McDermott, and I am a certified life coach and the host of the Lillian McDermott radio show. If this is the first time that you've been tuning in, then please know I've been waiting for you. This is a safe place where you can go when you need a friend. It is my commitment to provide natural ways to heal, and it is my mission to make awareness, responsibility, and truth a part of our everyday life. And I hope you, my listening, as well as my viewing friend, will feel empowered to embrace a new truth and live the life of your dreams. Well, as I said to you, Carlos Garcia is one of those people that, Dr. Carlos Garcia is in the classroom today. People lovingly call him Dr. G. But today we're going to be calling him Dr. Carlos Garcia, so you can get to know Dr. G eventually. So Dr. Garcia, I met in 2015. I walked into his cancer treatment center and I didn't see any bald heads. I didn't see anything that resembled any smell or taste or feel of a cancer or oncology center, although this is not an oncology center. But it made me take a look at cancer and the way you can treat the body, whatever it is deficient in. So today we have the privilege, it's been a while since he's been in the classroom, to have another conversation with Dr. Garcia, one of hope that of many more. And we're going to be talking about how listening to the truth and how you can heal with the truth just as well as you can ignore it. So, since it is our sole purpose in life to give and receive love and knowledge, I am grateful that Dr. Garcia is here to do just that. Welcome, Dr. G, to the classroom.
Thank you, Lillian. Good to be back again.
It is nice to see you. So share a little bit about your background, because you're not the typical place where you would think that a cancer center doctor would be at. So share a little bit about yourself and what led you to creating Utopia Wellness.
So I went to school at the University of Massachusetts in Worcester, Massachusetts. I then did a residency in anesthesiology at Hahnemann University, which is in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, or was, because apparently it closed down. And then I came down here to Tampa, Florida to practice anesthesia. I was injured. I was very young, and I needed to do something because at 39, you're way too young to retire. So I didn't know what to do. I then, a friend of mine said, there's a chelation center that needs a doctor. And I said, what's chelation? He says, I don't know, but just go do it. I went over here, and then eventually I found out that what he was referring to is what we considered alternative healthcare. So I said, okay, so this is going to be a waste of time. So I decided to make lemonade out of what I thought was lemons. And I opted to buy some binders and take some notes. And I figured that since this was, at least, mind you, I'm classically trained, so I knew this was a waste of time because they told me it was a waste of time. I figured that I would take notes, and then I would write a sitcom, go to Hollywood, and sell them a sitcom, and that's actually the real story. And so what actually happened was I found out that the patients knew more than I did, and more importantly, the patients started getting better. And so I began to have cognizant dissonance, which is what you were referring to earlier in your conversation, when you hear something that goes against your belief structures. And so therefore, you're refusing to engage in something that is what you consider a challenge to your belief structure.
Yep.
And so I finally realized that people were getting better, and things like type 2 diabetes, hypertension, and other illnesses had a remedy, which mainstream medical school, at least when I went there, said there were incurables. And that's not true. So I wound up having to retool, re-educate myself, um, and basically teach myself medicine.
And but what led you to cancer though? Because you went from chelation, which is a form of removing impurities in the body, including metals, and explain about chelation so that everybody understands. I don't want to just put my words in there.
All right, so there are numerous chelating agents. Um, Iron, you got desferol. Heavy metals, some of them you've got EDTA. Other ones like mercury, you have DMPS or DMSA. So my facility was running EDTA primarily, although DMPS was a distant second because there's not that much mercury toxicity, thank God. So the whole aspect was that we were dealing with chelation therapy, but other people gravitated towards the clinic because they had other issues and they wanted to explore other possibilities. So slowly but surely, I was presented with a few cases of cancer at a time, and I became interested in cancer. And one of the fascinating questions about cancer is, well, let's back up a little bit. One of the things I learned when I was doing the chelation services was I learned about a gentleman named Royal Rife. And Royal Rife was a brilliant engineer who developed a frequency machine, and more importantly, a microscope composed of 10,000 parts. I've never seen the microscope, but I've heard of it. And so Royal Rife used to receive samples of cancer from a variety of different doctors throughout the United States. And he was able to visualize the cancer cells underneath his microscope. And he realized that every cancer, it didn't matter what part of the body, was composed of one or two viruses, which he called BX or BY. My understanding is that the B stands for bacillus. And so since he discovered them, he could name them. And the fascinating aspect is that when you think of the flu, and there's been the bird flu, the Hong Kong flu, the swine flu, N1, H1, and so forth and so on, your whatever flavor of flu you're wanting to have, it just deals with the upper respiratory system. Always attracts the head, neck, the sinuses, the lungs, and yet there are different. Allegedly, there are different viruses that are causing the flu. You look at cancer, and with the exception of the heart, you can have a cancer almost in any other part of the body. Yet it's only caused by two different viruses. So with two viruses, I would expect perhaps one virus to affect one part, certain organs, and the other one to attack different organs. But you didn't see that. You saw that it didn't make any difference based on Rife's work, which particular virus was found in which particular organ. So it was like a hodgepodge. And so I went into a lot of curious readings, a lot of dead ends, trying to figure out why it is that cancer can happen in one breast but not in both breasts, or in both breasts, and why some people would have a liver cancer versus pancreatic cancer or any other cancer. So the whole lack of symmetry or easy to follow, like as compared to the flu, was very tantalizing for me. So I did a lot of readings, and I came across a gentleman named Hammer. Now, Reichert Hammer is a medical doctor, oncologist from Germany, whose son developed testicular cancer after having some sort of emotional issues. So that was my first inkling that we had to begin to look at the entire aspect of the mind-body connection, because people don't leave their teeth in the waiting room, and they don't leave their soul outside either. They all walk in with everything. So if that's what walks in, we got to consider whatever walked in. At least that's my philosophy. Everyone is welcome to have their own. So I began to understand that emotions begin to play a part in people's welfare or lack thereof. And one of the things that this culture doesn't do, and it's not knocking the culture, just the way the culture has evolved, is that we try to be very stoic. And that doesn't serve us well. So I began to explore all the possibilities. I ran into different practices. I began to understand more about chiropractic, which is again poo-pooed by mainstream medicine. I started to engage with acupuncturists, which are even further down on the pecking order, because again, if we don't understand it, it must not be significant.
Yeah.
And we've tried pushing, or that is to say, the system has tried pushing the notion that cancer is a science, which I reject. And the reason I reject it is because of the human being. The human being is not a robot. So what happens in one person doesn't necessarily happen in another person. That's why they have different drugs for different diseases. People can heal if you understand what foods to give people. And so there's many different remedies versus the one size fits all, this is how you do it, basically called protocol, which, by the way, isn't handed to you. I've never seen a protocol, an official protocol. And I've never been told how this protocol was devised. So we're going on blind faith that when someone says this is protocol or the standard, that the standard has somehow been worked out and that it's doing
Yeah.
whatever it's supposed to do, which I find rather suspect, but what the heck.
Yeah.
So again, I started to increase the inputs into my medical education, realizing that no one discipline in medicine is going to be all encompassing. It isn't going to be all inclusive. And so I decided that I would sort of consider myself like a warehouse and just stash all the different types of disciplines that I could learn, even if it's superficial, and then utilize them on an individual basis. What one person gets may not be the other, and then align myself with those practitioners that have a greater depth of understanding when I'm stumped, to refer them to them, because potentially that is a much better solution for the patient, and it's all about the patient. It's not about the protocol. And so in essence, my injury, which is why I retired from anesthesia, afforded me the opportunity to broaden my medical education and actually take charge of what I considered an education versus what other people consider this is what you should learn and this is how you should vomit the information to pass these tests. So in a nutshell, that's kind of how I got here. And you know, the other aspect of medicine that I had to learn, which actually I had a little bit more problems with, was understanding how the teeth actually affect the human health. And it's remarkable how even when you go to your ear, nose, and throat, I've never had a patient tell me that the first question that the ear, nose, and throat doctor asked me was, do I have any root canals? Do I have any cavitations? When's the last time you seen your dentist? Do you have dental history of any significance that you're aware of? And in order to look at the throat, you're going to have to see the teeth. The problem is that medicine has disjointed from dentistry, and the emotional components, unless there's a drug that they can give you, is really not taken into account, just because it's just not something that's been educated to be of significance, unfortunately.
Well, we've had Dr. Thomas Levy. I don't know if you know who he is, but he has continued the work of, oh gosh, I'm trying to remember his name. It'll come to me, but he talks all about the mouth and the importance of the mouth and hydrogen peroxide. And it's not Dr. Honeyhackey because he's still alive. It was, and I'll remember Hutchinson. Anyway, anyway, he studied with him. He was a dentist and he was giving IV chelation, IV with people that were having teeth extracted. A woman that could barely walk going in was able to walk out after the extractions. So he comes on the show all the time in the classroom and he tells these incredible success stories when it comes to the health of the mouth. And so I love the fact, and when one of the things that I love about Utopia Wellness, and by the way, when Dr. Garcia was talking about Dr. Hammer and Reif, Dr. Reif, he put all this information in his book called Cancer is a Symptom. And let me tell you, when I first started looking at this book, and it's been a while since I've looked at it and actually gone back. It was so, it was written for me. It was written for someone that, sometimes you read a book and it's so up, you can't even understand what it says. But this was so down to earth where I could understand that this was the start for me. This book was the start for me to see that the body is incredible healing machine, and that if given it what it needs, it has the ability to reverse. Now, was that something hard for you to accept, Dr. Garcia, when you were in the beginning stages and you're seeing people get well, and instead of increasing their prescription pad, as the medical director in this place that you were thinking that you were going to write a novel, a comedy about, were you surprised when you were listening to these truths? Because the focus of today's class is to look at truth as something that when it shocks us or when we are like hit by it, instead of dismissing it, actually look at it, which is what you did. You actually could have dismissed it, which a lot of allopathic doctors do, but you embraced it. What was it for you? What was your moment that you stopped putting the blinders on and just ignoring it and canceling it as stupid and conspiracy or whatever, to I need to learn more? What exactly was that moment for you?
It's an interesting question. I remember it was a Thursday, and on Wednesday I had written a prescription for somebody who had hypertension, and the person would come in and say, whenever I stand up from sitting position, I feel lightheaded. That was easy. You're over medicated. And so I whipped out his medical record charts and I looked at it, and I noticed that his blood pressure had progressively dropped. And yet he was still on the same medication that he was on before. So, the answer was simple: just take the drug and just cut it in half and just give it to the patient and see how he does. Well, that's all simple and fine, except it bothered me. And so I happen to think relatively well when I take showers. Not sure why, but I just do. And this one was a particularly long shower. It lasted all of 4 hours.
Wow.
And I was
Wow.
like really just fighting this sense of like, there's something that's totally wrong. And I couldn't figure out what I had done that got me to think what I've done that just feels wrong. And I kept thinking about it, and finally remembered this gentleman that I wrote the prescription. And what actually was a cognizant dissident event was the fact that you're taught in medical school that, with the exception of antibiotics, once you start a drug for a treatment plan, you're always going to be on a drug. Now, they tell you that the drugs may not last for the entire duration of someone's illness. In other words, your hypertensive medication may stop working for you, so you have to swap to a different drug. So you're taught that swapping one drug for another drug is okay. That's cool. But the fact that the drugs may actually have to be reduced is something that was almost an impossibility. It's like, once on a drug train, you never get off the drug train. And all of a sudden I was seeing people with not only hypertension, but with type 2 diabetes, their dosages are being dropped or discontinued, and their hypertensive drugs were being discontinued or significantly reduced. That for me was the aha moment when I realized that I needed to go and really take this seriously and start getting an education. And then I contacted different doctors throughout the world, as we had the 1200 baud modems at the time, which I probably would commit suicide if I was bound with one today. And start learning from these folks that were kind enough to, I'm sure from their perspective, like, who is this idiot? Learning about hydrogen peroxide and learning about other medications that are sort of, in my opinion, only used on a very superficial basis, as opposed to what we can do today at the clinic. And I found out that the more you got to know these medications and you start looking at the people. Now, from my anesthesia vantage point, when I did pediatric anesthesia as a resident, I realized that it takes an awful lot of errors to hurt a human being, actually to destroy the human body. So the body's very resilient. So I knew that intuitively and actually from a practical or clinical aspect because of pediatric anesthesia. Because when you're used to doing, I don't know, 5'8" humans, and now you got a person, a whole person that's maybe 18 inches long. And like they say, okay, now you got to go do anesthesia on this person. I'm like, I remember my first one, like it happened yesterday. I was like, I mean, first of all, the attending is like 6'6", and I'm like 5'6".
Yeah.
So I got this monster guy, and I'm looking at this little thing that's like 18 inches, and I'm like saying, I'm not doing this. And I remember saying to the smell, I said, I am not going to do this anesthetic. Because why not? Because like, I'm used to people like you. I'm not used to people like this. I says, I'm not doing it. He goes, calm down. Let me show you how it's done. He took the case, he did the case. Well, fast forward 6 weeks later, they had to drag me out of the place because I loved it so much. Kids are literally indestructible. And I learned that. And again, time in and time out during my anesthesia, I realized that the human body's got a lot more resilience to it than we actually give it credit for in medicine. And so it's very forgiving, thank God, because, I don't think I'm that bright. And that's one of the problems. And the next thing that I also had to learn is because the body's got resilience, one of the really interesting facets of medicine that I don't think mainstream medicine likes to admit is doctors can't cure. Okay? People must heal. Our job as physicians is to help you heal because we can't cure you. We can't walk on liquid water, and if you ice it, I'll land on my butt. Okay? We can't fly unless you really want to break your leg. So we put the pants on one leg at a time. When we go to the bathroom, it stinks. So we're no brighter, no better than anybody else. And doctors can't cure. If you take nothing else out of this conversation, realize that if a doctor says I can cure you, in my opinion, that's a pretty damn dumb doc.
And I agree with you. There has to be a partnership where, and that's what I love about you. When you talk to somebody, you tell them what they have to do. It's like, I love telling the story, Dr. Garcia, when I'm coaching or when I'm doing a show on taking your health back. I always tell the story of the paralytic man who sat by the pool, waiting for someone to put him in. The idea was that when the bubbles come up, the first one to go into the pool gets healed. So this paralytic man was there for 38 years. So Jesus enters in the scene, and he sees this man, and he goes to the man, and says, "Why are you here? What do you want? Do you want to be healed?" Now, Jesus could have just healed him right there, or just thrown him in the pool. But he asked him the question, do you want to be healed? And the man said, yes. Well, he could have done whatever to heal him at that moment, but he didn't. He said, pick up your mat and walk. To me, there is a, if I'm going to do this, if you want this to happen, you have to be an active participant. So I'm sure that with you, you have to engage people even more than the allopathic community, because the allopathic system will say, take this pill, take this pill. You don't have to change anything, just take this pill. And that is kind of like the philosophy. It's easy peasy. I take the pill. What is your greatest challenge, obstacle, whatever you want to call it, when it comes to telling people to pick up their mat and walk?
Well, I don't have an obstacle. I just tell them.
I
I
know,
mean,
but what is what is a person's biggest obstacle that you
the biggest obstacle is realizing that you're responsible for where you're at. That's the biggest obstacle. So the biggest question that the patients have, because I mean, I either get 1 stars or 5 stars. Either people love me or people hate me. And like, I rarely ever get like a 3-star or a 4-star or a 2-star. It's like either 1 or 5. My wife kind of laughs. And the deal here is this. The hidden gem in being responsible for being where you're at is that it's your choices that got you there. So if you want to know what you need to change, all you have to do is go to the mirror and ask yourself, what did I do? Why did I do it? And how do I change it? And then all the parties are there. If you're going to blame somebody else then you're going to have to beg that person for forgiveness or beg them to change whatever they're doing, to basically beg for your life. I don't like begging. And so the whole idea here is that if you want to get well, you want to understand why you're sick, and it's brilliant to be the root cause. Now, a lot of medicine, in my opinion, has changed into all these. First of all, you have these acronyms so that you don't feel that you have to say you've got a disease. You've got whatever it is. Like, it stinks to be named Edward nowadays, in my opinion. I mean, hey, you got Ed. Oh, here's Ed. Okay.
You've got ED.
Yeah. He's got ED and his name is Ed. Lucky him. So we've done away with the names to sort of make it so that you don't have to, admit that you have a disease. That's number one. Number two, the sort of the catch barrel is it's genetics. So let's talk about genetics. Let's do genetics 101. When you're conceived, the egg and the sperm get together. They sort of provide the future human with a full complement of their genome. And so think of the genome, the genetic material, as a wardrobe. And on one side of the wardrobe, you have formal wear. And on the other side of the wardrobe, you have swimwear. And so you get an invitation from your governor. You happen to like your governor. You want to go to the governor's ball. So you'll go most likely to your formal wear and go to the ball. And at that point, you're expressing, because you chose to wear your tuxedo or your gown to go to the governor's ball, and everybody knows what you have. Your friend sends you an invitation for a pool party. You go to the pool section of your wardrobe, you put on whatever floats your boat. At that time, you're expressing your pool material, your pool wardrobe, and nobody knows what you have for formal wear. So it's a funny way, or a simple way, for understanding that your genetic material is not your Lord and master. You are not a slave to your genes. Now, if you have the genes and you have the right environment or the right prompt, you potentially will express that material. In other words, if you don't have a tuxedo and you get an invitation to go to the governor's ball, in the gene pool, you can't go to the local yokel, rent a tuxedo place, because you can't do that with jeans. So you cannot express what you don't have. In other words, you can't wear what you don't own. So then the same thing goes for the swimsuit. So if someone says to you, this is because of your genetics, then the question you must ask that person is, why did it not happen 10 years ago or 10 years from now? Because the genes are not the problem. It's what caused the expression of the gene that's the issue. And that's what you need to understand. And so why do you have to understand it? Well, you have to understand it because, as the book name says, cancer is the symptom. If you don't know what's causing your symptom, if you don't know what's the root cause of your cancer, then either one, you shouldn't get upset that it doesn't go away, or two, you shouldn't get upset that you get it back. Because you cutting it out isn't going to work. Yeah, it does work from time to time, okay? You're not going to burn it out, because if you use radiation, everyone knows that the stem cells aren't going to be done away with, okay? And in chemotherapy, well, you can look up the statistics on chemotherapy. They want to all push it because that's the golden goat. That's the golden goat of medicine right now, mixing the huge amount of money, and that's what they want to do. So these are the whole options. And again, the people that are doing this are hoping to cure you. I repeat, doctors put their pants on one leg at a time. When they go to the bathroom, it stinks. We're not gods. We cannot cure you. We know how to mutilate you, that's for sure. We know how to really disfigure human bodies and cut body parts out. And you'd be surprised how many times, I had a conversation with somebody who has had 5 or 6 different ablations, and they were wondering why their liver enzymes were in the 500s. I said, because you've destroyed your liver. They play whack-a-mole. Where was the healing in that? No, they try to eliminate what they see without understanding why you have the problem.
Mhm.
Understanding the why you have the problem will afford you a remedy. Otherwise, you're not knowing what's going on. So
How,
you need to understand that.
yes. And how do you know how far, like when I went hiking one time and they said, that there was a beautiful river and there was a stream of the river. And so we know the river is going this way. But if I find something that's coming downstream, I know that it was there before it came to me. And so if I can go up higher and find where that source is coming from and I can go beyond it, then I'm able to identify where the toxin or the chemical or whatever is harmful is coming from. So how do you know how far to dig to go beyond so that you can find the root cause? How do you know where to go with each individual person?
Well, they call it the practice of medicine because it's not a science, as I said earlier. So, according to Reichert, you're looking at 3 months to 3 years. But then we throw in COVID, and that threw in a monkey wrench for about, I don't know, 2.5 years. So what I have done is I have expanded my range of potential insult resulting in what we call cancer. To go back to about 15 years to when you first noticed whatever the symptom was. So if you had a symptom, I'd go about 10, 12, 15 years before that. So say someone says I had a symptom in 2020, I would say, well, go back to about 2007 through 2020. And then I would give them a list of things, because based on Oriental medicine, the left side of the human body is associated with females, the right side is associated with men. So say a woman presents with a right breast mass, my question would be, think of a male, a significant male in your life that happened in this example between 2007 and 2020 that you either felt betrayed by, lost contact with, somehow were affected by that person. And it could be something like a childhood friend. It doesn't have to be a family member. It can be a family member and the like, and then you work from there. Interestingly enough, having done this now for about 25 years, it's interesting that by paying attention to what the person says, the person's going to give me clues as to where to go. Whatever you're talking about is something that's important to you. It's like, people meet me for the first time, they'll talk about their sister. Why in blazes would you talk to me about your sister if you're here? Well, clearly that person's got to do something with your life. That's a rabbit hole. We start there. And you'd be surprised what we're going for. And when people get the idea that you really want to find out what the cause is, and intuitively they realize that if I understand why I'm sick, maybe I can get out of this mess, then it winds up being a synergistic environment. Now, it doesn't always work that way, because many people like to be victims. And this country really embraces victimization. It really likes people to be like, you're not responsible for your cancer. I mean, how dare he say that you caused it because of X, Y, or Z? I mean, how could the affair that my husband had resulted in my breast cancer? I mean, I got over it, or whatever other nonsense they want to think. This is what we're here to do. It's the practice of medicine. You're not paying me to be right. You're paying me to be thorough. I don't have a dog in this fight. I mean, my dog is, I want to get to the root cause of it, because that's what floats my boat. That's why I get up every morning. That's why I come here, and that's why I do this for 25 years, because it's kind of fun to figure out the puzzle.
And
And
I
I'm a
love that. And I love how much I don't know if you remember this, but I used to call you Inspector Gadget If it exists for helping your patients, you get it. I remember we did the Avasia together, and I mentioned it to you, and the next day you drove all the way to Orlando. You sat in the class. You knew that this was something that you needed to introduce to your people. And so I tell you, I'm so grateful that you're back, because we really need to have more doctors speak this kind of truth. And sometimes, sugarcoating may be okay in some situations, but when your house is on fire, you don't gently wake somebody up. You kick them out of bed and you tell them to run like heck, and that's what you do. And I have another guest, and I don't know if you know her, but Dr. Lorraine Day. Dr. Lorraine Day was just like that. She was a mentor of mine, a teacher, a regular in the classroom since, well, she started coming back to 2019 every month. And she just recently passed away. And so I used to say to her, some people would say, oh, she's so rough and she's so gruff and she's so this or that. And I mean, I don't want to be, hey, your house is on fire. Wake up, wake up. No, you need to take action right away, and you need to move. And
Well,
so,
but this is an important point you're bringing out. Part of the problem of that people have is that because when you tell somebody your choices resulted in your cancer, they get offended.
of course, that's your ego.
But right, but my point being is, are you really angry at the truth, or are you angry at the messenger?
Hmm. Hmm.
If you're angry at the truth, you've got a really big problem. If you don't like the messenger, well, he's only the delivery service, because the message is the message, and you better change it. And again, part of the reason that I try to be as blunt as I can with people is because I'm trying to reinstill in them what they had. And what they had before they heard this word cancer is they were lions and or lionesses in control of their choices. Then they hear this word cancer, and the first word associated with cancer in this culture is death.
Hmm.
So now they figure that they're dead people walking. So let's talk about death for just a few minutes.
Hmm.
I go to people and I say, you know what? My life is very simple because I consider myself a dead man walking. And they go, what? So yeah. I said, I basically realized that eventually I'm going to die. Like, who the hell isn't going to die? I mean, for God's sakes. So one of the things that's actually happening, and I really don't like it, is there's an awful lot of fear mongering.
Hmm.
If you don't go do this, you're going to leave your kids without a mommy or a daddy. I mean, what about your spouses? What about this? What about that? So they sort of guilt you into compliance, which I think is not good medicine.
No.
I think that people should be told, here's your choices. Let me go through them. And by the way, I can't cure you, so let's work together to figure out a remedy while you're ill.
Hmm. Hmm.
Unfortunately, that doesn't happen very often. In fact, I think Utopia may be one of the few places in the world that really deeply dives into the root cause of why you're sick. And so what we're trying to instill in you is that fire that you are in control of your destiny. Now, you're going to use subcontractors like myself to help you navigate those things, but you're in control of the outcome. If you think you can get well, you favor an outcome that is favorable, in my opinion. If you don't think you can succeed, then you're going to skew it the other way, in my opinion. So you have to have these parameters that allows you to understand what's going on. And you need to be able to understand that part of telling you that you're responsible is not to shame you, which is what the culture would like you to feel, but it's to reignite the lion or the lionesses that once ruled your body. And because every kid, at least every kid that I've come across, is a lion or a lioness even as a child. They think they're invincible. They can do almost anything. In fact, they do all sorts of crazy things, drives parents crazy because they're doing stuff that the parents are saying, my God, don't do this, because they don't know fear. Fear is a learned behavior. You learn what to fear from your parents, and the parents teach that to their kids.
Yeah.
And so what we have to instill in you is the fact that you are a lion or a lioness, so that you can help yourself. And what medicine tries to do, or mainstream medicine tries to do, is basically have you understand that you're not smart enough, you're not gifted enough to be able to be a lion or a lioness anymore. You've got to go and rely on the practitioners who know more than you, who have more experience than you. And we're so good at it that cancer has gone from 5% of the population in the early 1900s to over 50% today.
Mhm.
So we're brilliant at it. I mean, we're absolutely fantastic. It's only gone up tenfold. So if it's going to go up tenfold, right? Cancer's got to be that big boogeyman that you got to be scared of, that you can't do it on your own, that you need help because it's cancer, and cancer is a killer, and you need my help. And all that's horseshit.
Well, with that, I want to take a minute to talk about, because time. I mean, I could probably do a 3-hour, 4-hour class with Dr. Carlos Garcia, and I'm sure you can see why I love him. I always say, "Hurt me with the truth. Do not hurt me with a lie." If you tell me a lie, and I catch it, it's going to be a long, long, long time before we can resolve this. I mean, I'll forgive, but that doesn't mean I have to trust you. But hurt me with the truth, not with a lie, is a lot easier for me to be able to respond. Who wants to live in darkness? Who wants to live a lie? And so this is what we discuss here in the classroom at whenyouneedafriend.com. And if you are a subscriber, then you already have all of Dr. Garcia's information. So go to whenyouneedafriend.com. While you're there, please subscribe to the website. And while you're there, please like and follow me on all social media. We make it very easy for you to just go and click and join. And while you're there, also support my sponsors. Support them the way that they're supporting the classroom. And other things that you can do so that you can start taking your health back is you can join some of our workshops. One of them, we're going to be doing a summit, the I Am the Solution Natural Health Summit. And this is the I Am the Solution period Natural Health Summit. This is where you're going to go and learn firsthand how you can take your health back. But how is what we discuss. How can you be the solution? Not just get answers, it's be the solution. And I am just really excited that we're going to have great speakers, great teachers, as you know. So go to whenyouneedafriend.com. There's a pop-up. If you haven't registered yet, please do so. We just changed the date to April 6th, 2024. So I'm really excited that we have more time after the holidays to just look at what we want 2024 to be. And it's a great opportunity for us to meet like-minded people. And it was so much fun last year. We had a wonderful group of people and great speakers. So if you're interested, and I hope that you are, share it with your friends, because friends that grow together stay together longer than if they don't. So with that in mind, go to my Shop Now bag. There are products that are all these products Lily approved. Some of them are affiliates, some of them are not. These are just products that I absolutely love, that I want you to know about. So go to the Shop Now bag. It will tell you all the different things that are Lily approved, from makeup all the way to pain management. And so check it out. And last but not least, you can become an enrolled student in the classroom. So it's $1 or $1,000 a month, or a one-time donation. Everything that you can do, even sharing this video. By the way, share this video with everybody you know, because as you know, the more you share, the more you comment, the more emojis you put on it, the less the algorithms can affect. So please, let's do our part in sharing this incredible information that we are that the body that we have is incredibly forgiving when you give it what it needs, especially when you deal with a root cause. So whether it's your time, your talent, your treasure, please consider giving all of that and give generously, because we will be grateful to everything that you can send our way. And so today we're talking with Dr. Carlos Garcia. People lovingly call him Dr. G. And you can find him at utopiawellness.com. You can also find him at Utopia Wellness or utopiacancercenters.com. And so either way, if you go to Utopia Wellness, you'll find it, or you can just go to your blog and just click on his name and it'll take you there. Dr. Garcia, you said you've been doing this for 25 years, and I'm so grateful for you sharing. Is there anything in particular that about your clinic that is different than any other clinic? Because I was coaching a woman that I tried to get her to come to you. She was from New Jersey and she decided to go to Mexico. And when she came back and she told me what she did, I thought, oh my gosh, this is totally, that was totally unnecessary. But people make their choices. How is Utopia Wellness different than any other holistic integrative center that treats the body, including cancer?
Well, I think one of the aspects that you have to look at is what are the modalities that are being provided for consideration when a person comes here. We approach the emotional components. We approach the dental components. We approach the physical components, of course. We detoxify the body. We oxygenate the body. So when you start looking at all the therapies that we have, I mean, I think the biggest asset that, or I'm not sure it's an asset, but the strongest service that we have is that we basically have you play your role, which is the patient, whereas we manage and integrate all the information that we glean about you and then let you understand what's going on because we give you copies of everything that we do. So for example, you'll be doing colonic irrigations at the facility. You'll be doing hyperbaric chambers at the facility. You'll be doing right frequencies at the facility. You'll be speaking with Dr. Nelson when it comes to emotional components. We'll be participating in a group session where everybody gets together and everyone interacts with one another. You're going to be meeting with the herbalist. We may send you to an orthogonal chiropractor to deal with your cervical spine. We'll be sending you to biological dentist to find out what's going on through a cone CT beam evaluation of your teeth, and then further tell you if there's pathology, what are your treatment options so that you can address those eventually. So everything is sort of looked at. We have access to acupuncturists. We have access to a lot of different specialties that we try to incorporate on an as needed basis, because not everyone needs those aspects of it, and figure out what else we need to do and what else we don't need to do. We've made some relationships with surgeons that are willing to do certain aspects. We've come up with a system to try to basically not really diagnose you with cancer, but if you've got a lump and you don't want to do a biopsy, because there's a good video that I did in my website showing how I believe that potentially a biopsy can spread your cancer.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
The highlights is basically I take a turkey basting needle because it's being videoed, so you need a big enough item to be able to see. Put it through a piece of toast. In the mason jar, there is a piece of butter that's room temperature. The turkey basting needle goes through the toast into the butter. I scoop up some butter, pull it back out. The part of the bread that was facing the butter now has butter on it. It wasn't there before. So whereas that is a possibility, I'm not telling you that it happens all the time, you'd be surprised how often people say, no, there isn't, no, you can't, no, you can't. And I've recently learned that apparently certain institutions have done studies that actually are confirming the video that I did, which is rudimentary. You need to look for things that are common sense. You need to have people that are willing to address different aspects of it so that we can manage your care from start to finish and then give you follow-up care. I mean, I think there's about maybe 4 clinics that, in my opinion, I would consider in the United States that if I had cancer, I would I would go to. Mine, I think, is the best, but I'm biased. I don't say that. But look at what they offer. If all they offer is vitamin C, there's no trick horse. Okay, there's no trick pony here. There's no silver bullet. You're not going to get rid of your cancer with one aspect. It's a multifactorial process that resulted in overwhelming your body into what we call cancer. It's going to take a multifactorial approach to get rid of this problem. You didn't get
Absolutely.
cancer overnight. You worked at it for a while. Now, sometimes it does happen. An example, you put your baby to sleep, you wake up, the poor child died overnight. Boom. Don't be upset be upset, but don't be surprised if you have breast cancer within 3 months. I've seen that happen. So depending on the shock, depending on how quickly the cancer will present itself sometimes. And yet you have other people who've gone through horrific examples in their lives, and the emotional component doesn't play into why they have their cancer. So you've got to define where people come from. You need to understand what their limitations are at times, and you need to be honest with them. And more importantly, as a practitioner, I have to be honest with me. Because at the end of the day, the only one stuck with me is me, and the only one stuck with you is you. So you better learn how to be honest with yourself, and don't pretend to be honest, because a lot of us have basically lied to ourselves into thinking that we're all that and then some, when we're really not. So part of staying well, since you're stuck with you, is that you should be honest with yourself and really just empower yourself to make mistakes so that you can correct them. I mean, no one says you have to be right all the time, and no one says you can't make boo-boos. God knows I'm a walking boo-boo. So the whole point being is I've learned how to just forgive myself and call it a day, move on.
Yeah.
Look for the glass half full aspects instead of that. And part of that is our culture. We emphasize what we don't get right. We emphasize fear. We don't emphasize appreciation of those around us and the events that have gone well. And I recommend that to my patients, that, when you wake up in the morning, say good morning to yourself in the mirror. You'll say good morning to your spouse, your kids, your friends, your neighbor, strangers, but you won't say it to yourself. And tell yourself good night. Now, it sounds stupid. Well, to the uneducated, it does. Okay. Certainly it sounds odd to everybody that I tell them. But start doing it, and you'd be surprised by just saying good morning and good evening to yourself, how your life begins to change. One of the things that all cancer patients have is a poor value of self. Acknowledging yourself by just saying good morning and good night is a very good first step to getting some value for yourself.
I really do believe that we need to have a part 2, part 3 on this, because we're just dipping the toe into the pool of health and wellness, natural health and wellness. I love how you incorporate everything, but not everybody gets everything that you have, right? Or does everybody get to sample everything that you have?
It depends. I mean, it's all tailored to someone who has, for example, a colostomy will not do colon therapy,
Okay,
for
that makes
example.
sense.
So, we have to figure out what's going on. But on the other hand, if you have dentures, I will still send you to the dentist just to make sure. You're not paying me to be right. You're paying me to be thorough.
I like that. I like that. Okay, so when there are people, there's what could go wrong, and we also need to look at what could go right. And so with all we tend to gravitate to what could go wrong, and that's the fear. And like you said, fear is a learned behavior, and that is how we manipulate and control people, including our insurance system. And we only have about 2 minutes left. And many people make decisions about their health because of what the insurances will approve and what they will not approve. So someone that, because I know you don't take insurance, right? You still don't take insurance.
Insurance companies don't pay us.
That's right. And so with that in mind, someone who is now looking at this obstacle of, well, my insurance will pay for this treatment of cancer, which we already know they're going to have $50,000 to $100,000 of out-of-pocket expenses, but that's not something they tell them, versus spending the money at Utopia Wellness. So, or any center that is not approved by the insurance. What would be your advice to someone who's making that decision to try something healthy as a, to build the body as opposed to deplete the body?
When I face that question, most people have had family members. So you say to yourself, okay, look, if your son had your disease, or your daughter had this disease, or if your friend had this disease, or if your other relative had a disease, your mom, your dad, your whatever, would you hesitate spending the money? 9 out of 10 times people say, of course not. I just spoke to a woman. She happens to have 2 young children. She was like 38 years old, diagnosed with breast cancer, did traditional medicine. It's back again. And, she was talking about the cost. And I said, well, if your son had cancer, would you be discussing cost? Of course not. How about your daughter? Of course not. How about your husband? No. How come we're discussing it when it comes to you? Patients who are diagnosed with cancer have a very low self-worth. And so they have to understand that you are important. Because if you're not important to you, then that's what you're teaching your kids, that they're not important either. You're not saying that, you're just demonstrating that. So you're important, you're stuck with you. So, take that for whatever it's worth. You're valuable.
Lots of words of wisdom. Thank you so much for all the pearls today, Dr. Garcia. I wish we had a longer time to discuss. Maybe we can do a part 2 right away. But this is, I want all of you to think about how this conversation, listen to this conversation over and over again. Neither Dr. Garcia or I said that we did this on purpose, but when you know better, you do better. We've been trained to believe a certain way, and this is a new truth. And I hope that in this new year, 2024, you will consider looking at how new truths can help you achieve your goals. No one is chemotherapy deficient or radiation deficient or Zoloft deficient or anything like that. So Dr. Garcia, I want to thank you for everything that you're doing to help the world be a safer place and a healthier place. So thank you.
My pleasure.
And please remember, you can go to utopiawellness.com if you have any questions. Of course, again, it's in the blog, so check him out. And please remember, we'll be right here waiting for you worldwide at whenyouneedafriend.com. This is Lillian McDermott and Dr. Carlos Garcia wishing you love, peace, joy, and unexpected abundance. Make it the best day ever. Yay!
The opinions and advice expressed on the Lillian McDermott radio show are intended for the individual callers and guests on the program and are presented to our wider audience solely for general educational purposes. Please act responsibly and consult personally with your own medical, psychological, or nutritional expert before taking any steps